Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of our deep dive webinars. My name is Savannah, and I am one of the customer success managers here at Sendible. And we are going to be talking about content libraries. So I am excited to be joined by Farinaz, who is on our support team, and we will dive in. Now, if you've been to our deep dives before, just a little bit of housekeeping. First, you have your questions tab and the chat tab. Now, if you have any questions related to content libraries, please feel free to pop them in the questions tab there at the bottom. And also keep the chat going. So to get that started, we're going to do an icebreaker. Now, for my icebreaker, it's going to be it's a Saturday morning. What is the first thing that you do to get your weekend started? So my similar to every other day, I get my coffee pot going because I've got to have some hot coffee to get me going, whether or not I got to sleep in or not. Yes. Oh, Wordle. Nice, Pete. Yes, Wordle is also a very big part of my morning routine. Ooh, Kathy, a latte. That sounds wonderful. Very fun. Oh, catching up on the news. Ooh, football. All right. Fantasy football. Interesting. All right. Well, we have an exciting webinar for you guys. So if you guys can see my screen, awesome. Okay. So I am just going to jump in to the content area. Keep filling in the chat for sure. That doesn't have to stop. Here, we're going to head over to the content section. All right. And because we're focusing on content libraries, I'm actually going to head over to my content. So this is going to be this tab right here. All right. So to start things off, I'm going to create a new library and show you how to kind of do that from the get-go. So I'm going to select this new library button and name it. So if you know me, you know I am a huge Star Wars fan, quite nerdy on that point. So I'm going to create a Star Wars library. That's going to be my library name. And for consumers, that's going to be anybody who I want to have access to this library. And I'm going to choose Pete because Pete is also a Star Wars fan. We can enjoy nerding out together. And then contributors, I am going to add Marcus, also a fan who is able to contribute to that. But so a consumer is someone who can use the content inside of this library, not a creator. And then a contributor is someone who can add to the library. So they can add their own pieces of content to this shared library. All right, so create the library, big orange button. And now we get to add content. Since this is empty, I have the ability to click add content right here. Or once I've created content, you'll always have that add button right here at the top. So add content. Now, in general, I'm going to be creating social media posts. So I'm going to go to social media, select. And then I get to create a title, the piece of content, etc. So I'm going to go with Darth Maul. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create a piece of content. So who is the best villain? And there is certainly going to be debate here. Now, oh, goodness gracious. So, yes, my spelling, let's show that off. Here we go, best bad guy, right? All right, so now I'm going to have the ability to attach images. Now this is similar to the compose box, and I'm going to browse from my computer files here. You have your option to go from a few different areas. All right, and Star Wars. So we'll go with, well, we'll pick Vader. Here we go. Add him to my piece of content. All right, added. Now we have this piece of content living in our Star Wars library. Now we have the, so that's really adding content to a library I just created, and that's directly from here. Now, another way to add content to a library is actually while you're in the compose box. So if I was in the compose box creating a message for a profile and I'm just plugging away, and then I realized that I actually would rather store this content. So I would rather store this content and use it at a later date. So I can come right here and I can select the save button and I can copy to a library, and then I can select the appropriate library to send it to. So my Star Wars library, and now all I have to do is enter text. So this is going to be just a little bit of title for this, pull it into my content library and close it out. So now you can see, again, this, while created in the compose box, still is able to live in my content library. Now that we've created content from here, there's a few different places. There's one more way that we can actually save content to a library, and it's just one additional step. Now that is using our Sendible share button. So if you come into, if you're reading this fantastic article, you're loving it, and you want to send this to your library. So this is our Sendible Insights blog, definitely a plug here. You want to check it out. But let's say you are reading this article, you love it, you want to add this to your Sendible library. You can select the Sendible share button and you can share that. It will pull you into the compose box. You'll see I am logged in here, and it pulls up this great piece of content. Now I can go ahead and copy this to my library. I can decide what it fits best. So I'm going to go ahead and save that to my content. And Sendible Insights blog post. And save. So now I can close this, but when I come over here to my content, you're going to see that I have saved the Sendible Insights blog post, and it has been populated here in my content library, easy to share out. Now, a few ways to publish. If you come into your content library, you can come in here and you can select the share button. Now, because this is my content and I own this, I can share it, edit it, or delete it. And sharing, if I click that share button, I get to decide if I want to share as an HTML. That's best for blog posts. So no, I want to share it as plain text. That blog post gets pulled into the compose box, and I have the option to select the appropriate profile that I'd like to send it to and hit send now. Super easy, just by selecting the share button directly from the content library you're working out of. Now, you also have the ability from the compose box to be working on a message and to actually select the book icon. This takes you to the content area of your dashboard, right? Now, if you go directly to content, you can filter by the content library that you're looking to post from, and you can select the image or the piece of content. It has the label here or the title, and then you have it all set up. Super helpful to just get that piece of content already pulled in. Now, some best practices around using content libraries. Now, you can use these for 1,000 different ways, and there's so much good stuff in here. But one of the ways that I like to utilize it is for brand approved images or logos. So these are logos for my Books and Brew business. It's my test account. So unfortunately, Books and Brew is not a brand yet. But so these are my approved brand logos, and I want my customer or my colleague to be able to utilize these logos. So I'm actually going to select the edit button right here on my library, and I'm going to add a consumer. That's going to be my colleague, Polly, so she's my, that's my fake client. Or I can select Anne here, and I want Anne to be able to use my brand approved logos. I also know that Anne is also going to be the person that I want to be able to add logos, because she is also working on with the same client. So I'm going to save this so that she has access to my brand approved logos. Another best practice that I love to take advantage of is hashtags. Storing hashtags ensures that you're not copying and pasting, trying to make sure that you're really using the same hashtags across your brand. And so I definitely recommend having hashtags library and sharing that library with everyone on staff. Additionally, when I am in the compose box and I'm using my library, I can actually access multiple libraries. So I'm going to type in some content here, right? And I can come into the feed here, the book icon, come into the content section, decide which library I'd like to pull from. So brand approved logos. I'm going to insert the logo that I have, and then I'm going to actually come back to the book icon, and I'm going to add the approved hashtags, right? So all I have to do, come to my hashtags library and plug in my books and brew hashtags. Now you'll notice I've added 2 different pieces of content from 2 separate libraries, and it has made my life so much easier. Get to share it out to my Facebook profile, click send, and that content goes live, ensuring that I'm using the hashtags that I wanted to use, as well as the images that are shared with my colleagues. So tons of fantastic things here in the compose area. Now, I am going to bring Farinaz on, and she is going to show us just a few good, helpful tips to take even better use of these libraries. So, yes, Pete, I know I can, commiserate's the wrong word, but utilize you as a huge Star Wars fan here. Awesome. Hi, Farinaz.
Hi, Savannah. Hi, everybody. I'm Farinaz from Customer Support. And I'd like to elaborate a little bit more on consumers and contributors, and also the usage when using the content library for blog posts, as well as adding content, but using the email functionality. So let me share my screen. Okay, there we go. So first things first, when we are within the content library area of the dashboard, and we are within a certain library, in my case, I'm currently making use of the multiple users library. If I wish to add content in this library, and the content that I'm trying to upload, they are multiple images or media that I'm trying to upload, you'll notice that we do not currently have the bulk upload feature available, but a good solution for this, or a workaround for this, is to essentially add content to the library using the email. So you'd click on the little option below, and this will redirect to email. Your email will populate, as you can see right here. And so at this point, you may insert. So I'm going to insert multiple media. So let me scroll down. So I'm going to select a few images that I'd like to, let's go back there. Okay, let's use this as an example for now. So I've selected 3 images that I'd like to essentially add to this library, and I'll then click on the send option. It may take a while for the images to filter through to the library, but it does. And so in this instance, once that images has actually reached that particular library, you will receive a notification via email, and essentially the notification will confirm that we've received your content via email and your content has been added to the requested library. In this case, it will basically provide you with the email content and the user. So we can see that I've used this one as an example previously, whereby I've added in additional images to the library. So right now, there is a limitation of 15 images that you can add via email. So you cannot do more than 15. You'd be limited to a maximum of 15. So that is a way that you can actually use the, or rather bulk upload your media to add to that particular library. Then I'd also like to touch on the functionality for blog posts. So when you specifically adding media to blog posts, in this case it would be WordPress. So essentially you'd click on the select blog post option, and you'd be requested or prompted to add in title. So I'm going to add in WordPress blog. And so essentially you'd have the rich text functionality. And what that basically will do for you is you'd have the option to tailor your text, your paragraphs. And in this example, if I were to add in some text right here, I'd have the functionality to choose my size of my fonts. I'd be able to bold this text. I would be able to italic, and also you would have the bulleting, and they are all related to rich format text. And so that's the one use of actually usage for rich text. Then you also have the functionality for HTML code. So if you're using a blog post at this point and you have the code related to or attached to that post, essentially you can copy the actual code. And so I'm going to use an example, and I'm going to use a code in this case. So let me just get that code. I'll copy it and then paste it in. Okay, so I've copied that, and I'll just drop the code in here, and I'll click on update. And so that will essentially bring up the content to the blog post, and you can then add that content right there. And so if you're using utilizing the content library, but you have volumes of content in that library and you'd like to index your particular content, which would be good for organizational purposes and easier to find at a later stage, you may add tags. So if this is for WordPress blog, you can enter the tag for WordPress. And if you know that this is related to a specific WordPress blog, and so in this case, let's say the blog is Sendible blog, you'd later be able to filter through these. So I'm going to add content right here, and I'm going to search for blog in the search bar, and it will automatically pick up the blog that you're looking for, and you can then later share that as a post by creating, by selecting your WordPress profile right there. So you will select your WordPress profile and essentially send now. So that is good for organizational purposes. And then I'd also like to touch on the functionality for consumers and contributors. So if we look at the library that I currently have open, I have two consumers and I have two contributors. So essentially, what these consumers and contributors have availability or visibility to is depending on how you've actually entered which role you've given them in that regard, and also what they have visibility to and what they can do. And this is good usage if you have a team. So if you have a team and the one team member is basically using this functionality for creating the text or using it for text only, and then we have another team member which will be using it for adding in media such as images, then this would be a great place to actually either allow your team member access as a contributor or consumer. So I'm going to use this example for now. So I'm going to drop in. Sorry, let's just do that. I'll redo that. So this particular team member, and let me do this once again. We can see that we've given her the role of of a contributor. So if I head over into content and my content, we can see that this library was basically or essentially shared with this user. And because she has the functionality of a contributor, she'd be able to share content, she'd be able to edit as well as delete. So if we have the share functionality right there, we can see the contributor would be able to share. They'd also be able to edit, and they can essentially edit by editing. So I'm going to add in edit 1, and I'm going to update my content right here. And if I head back into that content, we can see that she can make edits to the context of the post. And she'd be able to delete as well. So I'm going to have a look at the consumer. So let's have a look at this consumer right here. And I'm going to open that in a minute. So here's the example of the consumer. Let's close that down, sorry. Okay, let me do that again, sorry, it's picking up.
Oh, you're good, Fairnaz. I see this functionality as so helpful, especially if you have someone like a content writer who is creating content, and they're a perfect use case for the contributor, like you just saw. And then maybe you have a client who logs in and they would be a consumer, and that would be a perfect plug for how this looks for someone like your client. So they could, so they would be a consumer user.
Yep. Correct. So the consumer, as in this example right here, we can see that she's very limited in what she can basically use this functionality for. So essentially, she can share at this stage. So I'm going to do edit 1, edit 2. You'd be able to see that she wouldn't be able to edit at this stage, but what she can do is she can save it as a draft right here, and she'd be able to post out. So if she's sending it to a group or she's sending it to any other profile right here, she can basically do those edits right there. But she's very much limited in what she can do. She wouldn't be able to add in any media at this point. she'd basically only have access to the actual library itself, but she wouldn't be able to make any edits to it. So that's the difference between the consumer as well as the contributor. Then I'd like to head over into questions. I do see a question that's come through.
Oh, looks like it's just Pete.
No, it was Pete, and he's basically just speaking to Kathy right there. But essentially, this is what I wanted to cover, and there are no further questions at this point, unless, Savannah, there's something else that you'd like to add?
I don't think so. I think it looks like we have. I appreciate you answering Kathy's question about content libraries look like a good place to keep posts for annual days like Valentine's Day. And we absolutely see that use. It's great to kind of work on your holiday posts ahead of time, and also potentially some holiday hashtags. I always try to have a few hashtags for the specific holidays coming up, and having that already planned and in your content library is a great way to store them. Well, if this is going to be a last call for questions, does anybody have any questions for me or Farinaz around content libraries, ways to add content, save, or share content? Yes, Pete, good note. Try to make sure your hashtags are different and interesting. You want to make sure that they're truly relevant to your post. Good note. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, please join us again next Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern or 5 p.m. for GMT. I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. Thanks so much, Farinaz.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, guys.